Hi guys, I'm Uncle Richie.
Yo, what up? J Money's back.
And this is C10. And you're listening to the Uncle's Podcast.
Welcome back to the Uncles. I'm your host, and today we're diving into the thrilling journey of one extraordinary athlete. Get ready to be captivated by the story of Anna-Liza Mopio-Jane, the powerhouse Papua New Guinean swimmer who made waves in the sprint freestyle event. Imagine the adrenaline pumping as she represented her nation at the 2008 Summer Olympics, fiercely competing in the 50-meter freestyle. From her dedicated training with the Chandler Swim Club in Brisbane to the electrifying moment she raced in Beijing, Anna-Liza's journey is nothing short of awe-inspiring. Anna-Liza, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for that awesome introduction.
That was round two as well. So I nailed it, I think I got there. But yeah, thank you for hopping on the Uncles. I know we spoke a bit off air, and I gave you a bit of an introduction about who we are and what we do, but me and the other two uncles, we've been sort of planning to reach out to yourself and get you in the room, so it's nice to finally have you in the room.
No, thank you so much for having me. I love your podcast. So.
Oh, thank you. And look, how are you? How's life going at the moment?
Really good, busy with two boys and my own business, but all very exciting.
Yeah, look, we'll touch into your business towards the end of the podcast, but I guess I wanted to start off with a bit of background about yourself. Where were you born? Where were you raised? And I actually listened to your podcast with David Mead, and so I have a bit of a
bit of a background.
Yeah, a bit of background on yourself, but just keen to hear about where it all started for you.
Yeah, so I was born in Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea. I'm from Mekelle, Central Province, and I moved to Australia when I was 4. But prior to that, mostly in Moresby, I'd sort of go back to the village as well, because my mum was working as a journalist on MTV, so she was travelling with work, and then I was usually staying with family either in the village or in Moresby until, I think I was 4 when we moved to Australia.
Yeah. And how was that move coming down? You probably wouldn't remember much being that age.
No, not really. So we actually first moved through to Central Coast, New South Wales.
Yep.
And we were actually next to the beach, so I definitely remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Just spending a lot of time at the beach, and then just playing sports and having fun with other kids and stuff. But I think I sort of realised maybe around 7 when we moved to Brisbane.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I sort of realised, like, oh yeah, hang on, we're living in Australia, not in PNG. More so because we were going back home to see like the rest of my cousins, and I guess realising obviously the difference of living in Australia and then how my cousins were growing up back home in PNG, both in Moresby as well as back in the village as well. So realising that difference from a pretty young age, around 7.
Yeah, okay. And what was the reason for the move? Were your parents looking for, a new beginning for yourself or better education for yourself? What was the reasoning behind that big move?
So I think all of those things, actually. So my dad convinced my mum that, there'd be better opportunities for me if we moved to Australia, in terms of having a better education and more opportunities. And my mum agreed, and we all moved to New South Wales first and then Queensland. And looking back, I'm extremely grateful for that decision, because I have had an amazing education here in Australia and a lot of opportunities that I can see I may not necessarily have had in PNG, or if I did, it would have been more difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And going through, high school here and finding your feet, how did you come across swimming, or sports in general. How did that come about?
So I've always loved sports, all sports actually, not just swimming. And if anything, my mum was a huge basketball fan, so I was heavily into basketball, and I know she wanted me to be a basketball player. So I was actually playing rep basketball and swimming competitively in high school. So I was doing both. Going to like Queensland State Classics as well as going to international meets for swimming with PNG.
Yeah.
And then I did all the school sports as well. Netball, soccer, hockey, softball. But in terms of swimming, I just was in the Learn to Swim program. Obviously in Australia, there's lots of water and beaches and stuff. So just pretty much doing the basics of Learn to Swim. And as I progressed on each of those levels, I was eventually sort of asked, once I reached the end of the Learn to Swim, and the head coach of the swim club there asked me if I'd be interested in joining the club. And I was terrified. I was so terrified because I was just swimming in the 25-meter pool, and then the club was in the 50-meter pool. And as a 7-year-old, like that just looked huge. It was so big, and he encouraged me. He was like, no, just give it a go, swim one lap. Mind you, I was swimming laps in the 25-meter pool fine, but for me, I was petrified of the 50-meter pool, and I actually cried the whole 50 meters that first time. And he's like, it's okay, keep going. I was just crying the whole way. And then he just kept encouraging me. He was like, it's okay, keep going, keep going. And then I was ready to pull the plug, and I'm like, no, I really can't do it anymore. And the coach was like, you're like 5 meters from the wall. And I was like, okay, I actually can do it. So that was like my first experience of swimming in the 50-meter pool. And I think it also shows the determination I had in myself, thinking I couldn't do it, and then I did it, but also grateful for having the belief of a coach who was so encouraging, even though I was crying and saying I couldn't do it. Just having that belief and having someone able there to push you, I guess.
Wow, you actually just reminded me of a memory that I had when I first got to high school over here in Brisbane. Like in PNG, I thought I was an alright swimmer. Like I thought I was a pretty good swimmer. And then I got here and we did like inter-house swimming inter-house swimming carnival, and get on the blocks and like dive in. And I'm like, I think I'm going pretty good. Like I'm going. And then I look up to sort of take a breath, and like everyone is in front of me. And that's when I sort of realized how strong Aussies are in swimming. Like I didn't realize it till then, but literally every kid in school knew how to swim, knew how to swim fast, they knew how to swim properly. It was just crazy. And so I guess where I'm getting to is like you would have seen that at the clubs, in competitions here, locally. Like what was your experience, what were your thoughts when you were going up against some of these, fast swimmers in Australia?
So I remember, I think my first sort of big, like Brisbane club meet, I think it was 9, and I just remember like everyone else in the club was going, so I was like, oh, okay, yeah, cool, I'll do it too. And I think it was the backstroke race, but I kept hitting the lane rope, and then I actually hit my head on the wall as well. So it was like a 25-meter pool, and you had to go and tumble turn and come back. I kept hitting the lane rope. I hit the wall, and then like I finished, and my parents were like, are you okay? And I was like, that was so much fun. Like, and they're like, you like hit your head, and I was like, oh yeah, but it was just so much fun. Like I was just so excited by, I think just the excitement of, racing, because it's just so much fun. And then obviously racing all the time and training and competing in Brisbane. So I was so fortunate to literally be training with Australian Olympians, Australian Olympic gold medalists. Like they were in my club and I was training with them. And to have people like that who are just amazing at what they do was a real motivation for me to be able to then obviously aim and then eventually compete for PNG at the Olympics. So.
And let's dive into that, because how did that come about, going to or representing your country, Papua New Guinea, going to the Olympics? Was that something you sort of, did you reach out to someone within PNG swimming, or did they contact you? How did that all begin?
Yeah, well, it actually even goes back to that first coach I had when I was like 7 or 8. He mentioned to my parents that I could represent Papua New Guinea internationally if I wanted to.
Yeah.
I can't believe he even said that to start off with at like 7 or 8.
Young.
Yeah. But I think with swimming, it's such a competitive sport and they only take the top 2 for Olympics. In terms of in Australia, for my event in 50 metres freestyle, I was the top 10 in Australia, but they'll only take 2.
Yeah.
Whereas in PNG, I was definitely the fastest.
Yeah.
So to have my first ever coach sort of mention that to my parents, which was amazing. And then, I think it was, my mum and my dad sort of reached out to the swim clubs in PNG.
Yep.
And then, we'd go back around, I think it was September, were the nationals for PNG. So I'd always go back, race there, and that's where I'd be able to qualify for PNG and then go on to international competitions from there.
Yeah. And how was the feeling like going to your first Olympic Games? Can you give us an insight into what that feeling was like?
It was so surreal. And the other thing is, I went and watched the 2000 Sydney Olympics.
Yeah.
And I saw that and I was like, oh, I want that. Like, I want to be an athlete competing, like just seeing all these amazing athletes from all across the world competing on one stage. And so I trained for 4 years, and I didn't make the 2004 Athens Olympics, and I was devastated.
Wow.
And that was extremely difficult, but then I was still like, no, I'm going to try like again. So I literally trained for another 4 years. And then to be told, obviously, you get to go to the Olympics. I was so excited. Yeah. And then I think it sort of hit me when I was there at the opening ceremony and walking around, like obviously as they call out each of the nations, and there's only 7 athletes from PNG that went to Beijing Olympics.
Wow.
And I just remember walking out and just having goosebumps, and it was so hot and sweaty, but I was just covered in goosebumps because I was like, oh my gosh, I'd worked so hard for that moment. Literally over 8 years, because I was swimming longer than that, but to say that you want to go to the Olympics and then not make it in 2004 and then to actually be there, I was like, wow. I was so happy. And then I remember being behind the blocks, and then they say, Anna-Liza Mopio-Jane from PNG, you're literally walking out there in your tracksuit, and like, it was just so exciting. And I was actually on the blocks and wondering why the starter was like taking so long to start the race, and I actually looked across and another swimmer had a wardrobe malfunction. She literally split her suit at the Olympics, and so that's why it was taking so long. But like obviously she was fine, and like she swam and I swam, but just finishing that race and having all those years, like over 8 years of training, literally be gone in like less than 27 seconds. And like swimming is such a high frequency training, so the amount I was training for like a 50-meter race is, now that I think about it, it seems ridiculous, but at the time, because I was so focused on what I wanted to achieve, I still remember how that feels.
That's crazy.
To represent PNG.
And it's just an amazing, it just shows what sort of resilience you have as well to go, 4 years of hard training, intense training to get to, 2004 and not make it. But then say no, I'm going to the next one.
Yeah.
Especially after you said you're going to go to the first one
Yeah.
at the 2000 Olympics. Like that's still a long period of time.
Yeah.
But you just, it's a true testament to your character, I guess, showing resilience. When you got that no to finally making it, then making it and then getting there and having that awesome experience.
Yeah, and it was, and I had my mum, my dad, and my sister there watching too, literally in the crowd of that of the swimming cube in Beijing. And yes, such a special moment that I'll never forget that.
And another one of your sort of, I'd say, highlights was winning gold in Suva at the Pacific Games.
Yep.
Tell us about that feeling, because I know from just speaking to a few of my mates, the Pacific Games is, it's a huge thing for anyone who's in the Pacific, especially for people that are from back home in PNG. Like, this is their opportunity to go shine amongst, the other Pacific nations, and everyone loves it. They're up there in the stadium singing and all of that. So I just want to get your thoughts on what that feeling was like, because I know a lot of people want to understand that.
Oh, so 2003 Suva Pacific Games was my first Pacific Games. So I wasn't, I didn't know a lot of information about it because it was my first one. But I just remember going there and thinking, this is awesome. Literally seeing all these Pacific countries, the music, the dancing, just the energy in the crowd of everyone you don't get that at the Olympics. And you don't get that at the Commonwealth Games, because I think it is obviously not as many nations are competing. Yeah. But we're literally all brothers and sisters. And then to be able to, again, represent Papua New Guinea and win a gold at my first Pacific Games I was not expecting that. And it was it was awesome. Yeah. And then not only that, but then to be able to go and watch other sports and go watch other athletes compete. And the thing as well about that is, even though it's every 4 years, I'm literally seeing the same people and catching up with the same people, which is awesome. And from across all sports as well. Ange, who plays touch footy for PNG. Yeah. We caught up, I think the other day, and then I didn't even realise, where we had first met. And then it was her that told me, it was at Pacific Games, we always saw each other every 4 years. And I was like, oh my God, always in the food hall and just hey, I saw your race, or I saw your match. And it's those sort of friendships. And I've got several of them, Fijian swimmers that I'm still in touch with, the Fijian swimming coach. Those are all friendships formed at those competitions, because even though you're racing against each other, there's still so much love and support from each other. And then obviously the celebration after is heaps fun too.
No, that's amazing, because when I look at swimming, and I heard you speak about this on the podcast, but I wanted to go into it a bit more, just about. So my background is rugby, and it's a team sport, right? So whenever someone's down or whenever someone makes a mistake, everyone gets around him, put your head up, let's go again. We got, tap the ball, let's go. But swimming, individual event, you can't afford to probably be in a negative mood at the time when you're walking out ready to get on the block. What's sort of running through your head when you're walking out to the blocks, then getting ready and then getting up there?
Well, I love the comparison you made there to start off with in terms of team and individual sport. And like I mentioned earlier, I did basketball and swimming. But for me, one of the things, I like control, and I can control myself. And I like to have that sole responsibility. And swimming, I can do that. If I don't swim fast, it's my fault. If I swim well, that's me. I love team sports too. But I think at that stage in my life, I was very much focused and I wanted to do it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of having the right mindset, I think it's just always, I think when I was walking out to races, I'd always just sort of reflect back on what I've already done.
Yeah, okay.
I put in the work, now I can have fun and race. Mm-hmm. The one time that I didn't do that was actually 2007 Pacific Games in Samoa. So 2003 was my first one, and I won a gold, silver and bronze medals. I did really well.
Yeah.
And then I put a lot of expectation on myself for the next Pacific Games that I would do that well again. And in my first race, I choked because I had that expectation on myself. I didn't even medal. And
wow.
I just burst into tears. But that was me. That was the expectation I put on myself. And then after I spoke to my coach, he was like, you didn't even follow the race plan. And I was like, oh my God, no. I was just thinking in my head, okay, I've got to win, or, people expect me to win. I expect myself to win. And I didn't think of the basics, which was follow my race plan, literally what I trained for every day. And so that was a really good lesson to learn. And thankfully that was the first race. Pacific Games. And then I went on and won some medals. And that's the thing, I could have quite easily stayed in that mindset, oh my gosh, I didn't even medal, I didn't do a good time.
Yeah.
But that was literally the first day of competition. So that was up to me whether or not I was going to turn that mood around to be able to be focused for the next race and to actually follow my race plan. And I think not just as swimmers, but all athletes, it's a fine line between not going too far in emotions on field. I'm a very emotional person, but in terms of playing sport and how is that going to affect your performance or your team's performance is something to really remember. But I think for me, if I'm not able to process the emotions within that split second, I've got to make time for it after, because otherwise that will then snowball in other areas of my life.
Yeah. And so moving on from, I guess, your sporting career, you've had a illustrious, run, lost 2 golds Pacific Games. Is that might be missing one?
Yeah, so first Pacific Games and last Pacific Games in PNG. Yeah.
And then I was actually reading the list. There's tons of silvers, tons of bronze, so that's an achievement in itself. You've had an amazing swimming career and represented our beautiful country, Papua New Guinea, and something that you should be proud of.
Thank you.
But next step, you sort of finish up there your swimming career, and we just want to understand as well, what was that transition like? Because we always hear a lot of sports athletes speak about transitioning back into life after sport and into work as well. So just keen to hear your thoughts on that.
So I actually stopped swimming twice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I went through it twice. So after the Beijing Olympics, I was like, I want to go for 2012 London Olympics because it was so amazing. But by the end of 2011, I hated swimming. So I was like, no, actually, I'm good.
Why was that? You don't.
There was. So there was definitely some personal stuff that was going on with my family, but to be honest, I knew I just didn't like swimming. I was already thinking about having a career, a full-time career outside of sport. I was really enjoying the work that I was doing at the moment, and because I wasn't enjoying swimming that much, I was like, well, I don't like swimming. Why should I bother going 9 times a week for 2 hours?
Which is
it's a lot of time and effort for something that you don't like. And so, in 2011, I was like, no, actually, I'm done. But even when I said it back in 2011, I always knew I was going to come back for 2015 because obviously I knew it was going to be in PNG, and I was like, there's no way I'm missing Pacific Games in PNG. Damn straight.
Yeah.
So I started training again in 2014. So I gave myself a full year to train, so I was ready for 2015 Pacific Games, and then did really well there, and I absolutely loved being able to experience that with my partner, who's also from PNG, having my family there, like my extended family there to celebrate, like, because they'd seen me swim at nationals, but it's obviously nowhere near as big as Pacific Games. So to have my like cousins and aunties literally watching me win a medal, like on that type of stage, like they, oh wow. It was so
special.
Yeah, it was so special to be able to share that moment with them, because I've had my mum, dad, my sister travel like internationally, but to have like my extended family there in PNG experience that was so special. And then after Pacific Games in 2015, I thought for a second, Rio's actually around the corner, maybe.
That would have been a fun one.
But again, I was really enjoying the work that I was doing. And I was wanting to, I was already thinking about having a family and stuff. So I was thinking of going back, like doing more work so that, when we want to start to have a family, I've got that experience. Because as athletes, like I was studying at university full time while I was competing, but I didn't have the same experience as someone else because I just didn't have the time to. So these were all things that I was thinking of towards the end of my swimming career, because I obviously want to have a career, because I know swimming's not going to be there for me long term. And those are the things that I was sort of considering about whether or not I continue or finish swimming. And it is hard because it's such a big part of my life, like, and then, to be able to step away from that. And it's such a controlled environment. Like you go training Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday mornings. Like you go to gym Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturdays. Like those are your set structures. You know where you're going to be, you know how much time you have, you know when you should be going to sleep to recover. I just remember when I stopped swimming, I was like, I've got so much time. Like, so much time. So, and it was, it was a lot of freedom, which was a bit scary. In terms of like, what do I do with all this time? And then I think I refocused that energy towards my career and building that. So I think that's how I sort of like maintained like my positive mindset. But I mean, I bawled my eyes out both times that I said I was going to stop swimming, like just because it was such a big part of my life. And and then now like going towards counselling, like I went on to study counselling and realising it literally is a grief process because you attach so much identity into being an athlete that when you step out of that, it's really hard to go to a normal life. And then it's also hard to then be able to communicate that sometimes with your friends and family if they haven't been through it.
Definitely. I think it's one thing that only sporting athletes will understand and get once you stop that routine and you're sort of left with all this spare time. It's like you go through a little bit of a phase where what do I do now? But that's the next part that we're going to touch on here is you mentioned you studied counselling. You now have your own business, but I think another exciting bit that I've been sort of seeing as well is that you're also presenting with the ABC, which I thought was quite interesting because you mentioned at the start your mother was a journalist with MTV, and I just want to draw the comparison there to her work and what you're doing now. Like, was she a big influence in you taking up that space, or was that something you just sort of felt confident in doing?
So it was really funny. So how I ended up working with ABC, they actually interviewed me for that Pacific Sports Show. And then did the interview, and then when they were editing the footage, they were like, "Oh, actually, would you like to come down to Sydney and be on the couch?" I was like, "Oh,
Wow.
okay, sure."
Yeah.
And then, so they flew me down, sat on the couch, and that's actually where I first met David Mead. So he was one of the other guests on the show. And I had so much fun. Like, it was so nerve-wracking, like so many likes, and I was like, "Oh, what?"
It's nothing compared to the others.
But I just had so much fun. And then afterwards, they're like, "Oh, would you like to come back and we'll actually pay you?" Like, I was like, "Yes, okay." And then went back again, and then because I'm based in Brisbane, they said, there's obviously specific athletes that come through Gold Coast and Brisbane. You can interview them, and then we'll pay you, and that's literally how I'm now working with the ABC there, which I absolutely love. And then in terms of my mum, like, because she worked as a journalist on MTV, but she was very much like current affairs news, like very hard hitting.
Okay.
Because what I'm doing is definitely not that. So I think, sometimes her feedback is a little bit interesting. Because I'm like, "Mum, I'm not like presenting the news. I'm talking to other Pacific athletes about their stories." And she's like, "Oh, are you going to cry again?" Because, like I said, I'm an emotional person, but it's more sort of reminding my mum, like, they're two different genres, and also my mum and I are two very different people in how we approach things, and just to sort of notice that difference between the two of us has been interesting. But she's so proud of me, and I am grateful for that knowledge that she has and continues to sort of pass on to me. So that's pretty special. And then sort of since working with ABC now, I've gained that extra confidence in terms of being able to share my story openly. So now I'm speaking on stages, so I'll do keynote speeches. I actually just did one last week for International Women's Day. So having those opportunities to get up on stage, share my story, and my story is about representing Papua New Guinea and the adversity and the resilience, as well as the importance of mental health. So, and those are all things that I'm able to share on stage, which sort of goes back to that first interview that I had with ABC, and then being told, like, "Oh, do you want to come to Sydney?" Like, that's just how that has now evolved, and something that I really enjoy doing and will continue to do as well.
Yeah, look, give us an insight into what you have going on at the moment, because I know you've got your own counselling business, and it's aimed at athletes that are looking for a bit of help. I mean, I know for one that I myself, and I've had a lot of friends who played footy and had illustrious footy careers and played professional, and whether it was head knocks or injuries or different setbacks that were sort of crucial points in their lives, and that were very challenging moments that those guys had to go through. So I think something like this is very important, especially for athletes. And that's, I guess, another reason why we wanted to get you on, is because a lot of our listeners are in that space, interested to hear about what you've got going on.
Yeah, so I started my own business in 2023, and I was focused solely on counselling, just obviously with my own background, going to the Olympics and Commonwealth Games and World Championships for PNG. I understand the pressures of an athlete and having to perform. And then how I shared about, not doing so great at my second Pacific Games because of the expectations I'd put on myself and the expectations I'd perceived other people had put on to me. That's all just part of the mental health of an athlete and what your own expectations are and what others' expectations are. And part of counselling with athletes is I want to be able to empower people to realise they're not just an athlete. Yes, they're an athlete, and yes, it's a big part of them, but it's not all of them. Like I said, you're not going to be able to do it forever. You can, but not at that same elite level. And I think that's really important to be able to communicate that to athletes, that whether you win or lose, you are still a person. You are still a good person. Like, just because you lose doesn't make you a bad person, regardless of what, the haters are going to say online, or even your family and friends unknowingly they might say something that would trigger you. And that's part of the reason why I've got my own business in counselling, where I offer individual one-on-one counselling. And then I've just recently launched a online membership. And the reason why I launched the online membership is to be able to offer counselling and support to athletes at a much lower price rate. So that's $7 a month, and includes like all my digital products that I've created. So guided journals, like if you're injured, like you mentioned head knocks and stuff, like going through rehab's difficult. So I've made journals for injured athletes going through that, to be able to reframe their mind to sort of, looking forward in a more positive outlook, but also still acknowledging the difficulties that they're currently going through and have gone through. Because I think it's important to note, like, yes, you want a positive mindset, but not everything's always going to be happy and perfect.
Very important, yeah.
No, it's more about being content in who you are. And if you've got difficulties that are coming up, it's okay to ask for help. So, and part of that membership includes a monthly group call. So, you're able to ask me sort of any questions that you need help with. And then I'm looking to also add in masterclasses as part of that membership. So performance anxiety, negative self-talk, those are a lot of the things that athletes come to me for counselling sessions. So having the membership there, which is, $7 a month, you can cancel at any time, and you literally get access to all my digital products straight off the bat. So if you sign up, some of those are it range from $7 to $15. Yeah. And you can, so guys, if you want, just sign on for $7, and you can literally just download all those digital products that I already have, and I will continue to add to those. Because the other thing is, I want feedback. I want feedback from athletes. What are you struggling with? What do you need help with? And those will be the digital products that I'll create. Those will be the masterclasses that I'm going to create to be able to give back to athletes, because sport has given so much to me personally, and I'm so grateful for that, and I want to be able to give back.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I'm definitely going to put the link in there for everyone. It'll be in our bio on YouTube and on our link tree. So guys, hop on there and do sign up if you're someone that sort of fits into that category and you're needing some help. So look, last one before we finish up, I thought I'd take you back to the podcast that you did with David Mead, because you mentioned a quote. I think he asked you about a quote.
Okay.
You mentioned a quote at that time, which I thought was pretty cool. You said, "The universe has your back," and from then till now, I just wanted to ask you, would you say if I asked you if there's a quote that you're living by day to day right now, would it be that one, or has that changed to, do you have a new quote now?
I probably have a new quote now, but that still really does resonate with me, and I do still say that a lot, that the universe has my back. But I think a new one for me right now is that I'm open and receptive to receiving whatever the universe will give to me. Because I think in terms of what I quoted in that podcast episode is in terms of saying the universe has my back, it's obviously having the trust that you know, the universe has your back, but in terms of being open and receptive to receiving, I think is another thing. Because yes, you can hope for the best and stuff, but if you're hoping for the best but your eyes are still down and you're not even looking, like, you have to be open to that. And it also might look different to what you had hoped as well. So I think being flexible with what is presented in front of you is why I'm open to be able to receive that.
Oh, perfect. That's perfect way to end the podcast. No, thank you very much, Anna-Liza.
Thanks so much for having me, Richie.
Oh, everyone's going to enjoy this one. Thank you.
Thank you.